Welcome. My name is Gail DeSabatino. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and it's great to see so many excited people in the room here to learn a little bit more about our new residential community that will be opening in the fall of 2018. We are just thrilled that after 15 years of talking, writing proposals, doing research, planning, that this thing is really going to happen. It's really, really going to happen. And I can say that there are some people in the room, not the least of which is Lisa Johnson and Mike Metzger, who were instrumental in making this all come to fruition with their vision. Mike as a student and Lisa as a Vice Chancellor. So thank you for that, for your good work to get us to this point in time. We're building this because we believe that the students of today and tomorrow at UMass Boston deserve the very best student experience. The very best meaning that there are more opportunities for engagement, for them to be cared for, to be connected, and therefore them to be successful. And we believe that that will happen through this residential community. This community will house 1,047 students. However, the housing piece is only one part of it. The other pieces of this community will be open to everyone at UMass Boston. We will have residential dining, and we will have meal plans that anyone can participate in, or if you just want to eat there once a semester, you can just pay and come on in. We will also have learning communities that will be open to all students, not just the students who live with us. And we will have academic support, even though we have it already happening right here in the campus center and in various colleges throughout the campus. The academic support will carry its way into the residence hall as well. So there'll be opportunities for students, again, the 1,047 who live there, and then the others who want to take advantage of it, of everything that's happening on the first floor in that community. We have great confidence that we're going to fill these beds, 1,047 of them. 85% of our early action students have told us that they are interested in living with us in this residence hall. However, we also recognize that maybe 1,047 freshmen might not live there, so we are opening it up, and we are taking applications just now for sophomores and upper class students to live in the hall. We're also very excited. We'll have 31 students who are going to be resident assistants, and we'll be choosing from a pool of over 200 amazing students here who have applied for those positions. So we're going to have top-notch staff, we know, in that hall. So this is just the jumping off point for what we believe is the beginning of a very much enhanced student life experience at UMass Boston. I want to thank you all, everybody who's been involved in this project, for everything that you've done, and for our students who have shown an interest and have been excited about it. And now I'd like to turn it over to the person who's really leading the show these days when it comes to university housing and residential life, and that is our new Associate Dean of Students and Director of the Office of Housing and Residential Life, Nick Sweeten, who comes to us after many years at the University of Arizona, where he was the executive director of a community of 7,000 residential students. So he comes to us with lots and lots of good experience, lots of insights, and has just been running us all ragged with making sure that we get this job done. So let me turn it over to Nick, and again, thank you all for coming today.
Thanks, Gail. Cool, thanks everybody. And if you are wondering why the microphone, it's because we have a video recorder and it's recording sound. So as Gail said, my name is Nick Sweeten. I'm a Director of Housing, Associate Dean of Students. This is actually the first of 3 of these community sessions where we're inviting the community to come and hear what's going on and also ask us questions. So we do have agenda topics for today, but if you have questions that are outside of the things that we're actually addressing, please raise your hand and ask questions as we go along, because part of the whole point is we want to involve you all as the campus community in helping us develop this program and asking your good questions. So before I get started with my piece, I just want to introduce a few key people in our housing program. First is Keith Walk, our Associate Director for Residential Life. And Keith and I right now are the UMass Boston portion of the folks that are going to be running this hall. So how this hall is going to be run is that UMass Boston is responsible for the programmatic aspects. So we're responsible for the professional community directors that will be running the hall, the programmatic aspect of the hall, supervision of the desk and the service function, most of the service functions, supervision of the resident, the RA staff, programming, academic initiatives, that kind of thing. The other side of the coin, the folks responsible for the facility, the physical facility, as well as leasing and budgets, is with a third-party company called Capstone, who we work very closely with to make this hall function. And my colleagues from Capstone include Melinda Davis, who's the Director of Housing Operations, and Jen Giuliano, who works closely with Melinda on the housing operation piece. Also with us, you'll hear from David Morrissey from Capstone, not based here in Boston, but he will be giving the construction update in a moment. So since I started, I've been going around to various groups on campus. I've been to some faculty meetings, student meetings, and such, and I've gotten a lot of questions. And so I have, I think, a pretty good idea of what the campus perception of the housing program is and what's going on with the residence hall. And some of the things that some pockets of campus think to be true are what I maybe classify as a myth. So I wanted to start out by first addressing the myths that we've been hearing about our campus housing program. The first myth is the money. So I think everybody knows the campus is in a difficult financial situation right now. And one of the questions, actually the question I think I've been asked the most is, why are we spending money on building a new building when X is happening? Staff are getting laid off, or other things, other difficult things are happening on campus. And the answer to that is that we're actually not spending university money on the facility construction. We're working with a third party. It's called a public-private partnership, or P3, and a private entity is providing the funding and building the facility. So it's not as if the money that's being used to build the facility could have been used for other university priorities. So I want to clear that up right away. The second thing, myth I've been hearing is, and as Gail said in her introduction, hey, we've been talking about this for 15 years. And as I've gone around and talked with folks, I had someone tell me just last week, I've been on this campus for 27 years and nothing is ever completed on time. So are you really going to open in the fall? So David will answer that question with more specificity, but I can confidently say we'll be opening next fall. And the third most common myth I've been hearing is, so I've had the fortune of being able to go over to the facility as it's under construction. I've been up on the roof. The views are fantastic. They're second to none. And in fact, I think if this was like a condominium type of complex, the views are $1 million views. I mean, these would be expensive condos. So the question I'm asked is, are you charging by the view? So meaning the higher you live in the building is the cost more? The answer is no. We are charging by room type, not by view. So those are some of the myths I wanted to clear out of the way real quick. Before I hand it over for a construction update, are there other questions or other things you've kind of been hearing around campus that you're like, is that really true, that you want to ask about? Don't be shy. All right, well, hearing none, I'm going to pass it over to David Morrissey to talk to us about what's going on with the construction. I'll flip the slide for you too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Nick, and thank you all for joining us here today. Again, I'm David Morrissey. I work for Capstone Development Partners. Capstone was the third-party development group that has now partnered with UMass Boston to develop this wonderful housing opportunity here on campus. Yeah, thank you. Construction progress, or just a general update on where we're at. So we started a 20-month construction schedule, or activity, I should say, essentially a year ago today, or right after the Thanksgiving holiday. We started with soil excavation, deep foundations, shallow foundations, our superstructure, our exterior facade, all those things that if you've walked by campus, you have seen to date. And as we move through the end of 2017 and into 2018, we have a handful of key milestones to keep an eye on as we progress. The first being unit lounge window completion. This being, or excuse me, unit and lounge window completion. This being all of the elevated units and spaces. So two and above. So 2 through 12 on the east building and 2 through 9 on the west. That will be complete towards the tail end of this month. So November 30th. From there, we will start. So our exterior facade subcontractor will then remobilize to focus on the first floor, the dining space, the common area space of the improvement. So you're looking at dining, you're looking at storefront, you're looking at offices for Res Life and Capstone on-campus management. You're looking at those kind of improvements. The exterior piece, at least, will start there in December. From there, interior-wise, again, floors 2 through 12 east or 2 through 9 on the west will start with interior finishes. So we're essentially at the stage with drywall, taping, and finishing of those conditions, and we'll be starting with flooring, millwork, electrical fixtures, plumbing fixtures, and we'll be doing that on or about January 10th. From there, you'll see those same trades shift down into the lower levels to where we'll start installing food service equipment, as well as office space and live-learn space and those kind of interior improvements and things of that nature. And that'll start, again, about March 10th or in that window. As I'm sure you've noticed walking around the site, a lot of masonry activity currently going on, particularly on the east building, our larger footprint. That will continue through the winter. So we've essentially finished one side of our east building. We're working on another. We will continue working our way up as it gets colder. You'll also see scaffolding that's been tented in order to continue with that activity. So you'll see that, and you'll see that area being heated so we can continue through the month, with the exception of our east elevation of the east building. So the larger tower footprint. At a certain point towards the tail end of November, we will be stopping construction in that area, putting a temporary cap on that masonry and pick it back up in the April window, and then we'll complete that section as temperatures improve and we can continue with it. Into site finishes, so we'll start with sidewalks, hardscape conditions, landscape improvements. We'll start with all those activities starting in June. And frankly, it could even start slightly before that, depending upon how the flow of the schedule works for us, and frankly how winter goes this winter. So we've had a fairly good run of it up to now, and it's starting to cool down a little bit. So from there, substantial completion July 15th. This kind of is a major milestone for any project. It signifies your building is safe. So all your life safety systems are operational. All of your egress pathways are working. Your elevator's working. All of your systems are up and operational, essentially. The only leftover work to do is some miscellaneous architectural punch. So, drywall repairs, replacing this fixture, those sorts of things. Of course, when you're doing it 600 times over with the quantity of units, it does take some time. And so then we expect and have full confidence in an owner occupancy and a student move-in September 1. So that's where we're at now and where we're moving into 2018. I have provided some pictures to kind of give you a feel for if you haven't walked by lately where we're at. So this was taken. We have a webcam that's sitting on top of the Clark Athletic Center looking at the building. This is a shot from it. So this was taken on Tuesday. Again, you'll see the masonry in this area here. We've actually now topped off a masonry in this elevation. We're in the process of topping off right here, and we continue to go up. We're essentially 5 stories on this elevation and 2 stories on the backside. You can't see that from this shot, but give you a feel. And this is, of course, the west building and our larger footprint, the east building with the dining center. So this, one nice thing about the project in general, so right now campus-wide generally has one main point of entry into campus off of Morrissey Boulevard. So you go by the Integrated Science Center and you continue on. With this new development, you kind of create a second gateway, if you will, or a second path in. And so this, where I'm standing, where I took this picture, is at the northwest corner of campus, looking southeast through the building and through both the west building and the east building. And so, if you're familiar with the master plan of the campus, you have a Beacons Walk that kind of takes you from this building, takes you west, and then bisecting our two buildings will be that continuation of that Beacon Walk, and it creates that nice little picture frame effect of campus wide. So pretty neat. Here, I took this Tuesday, so as you know, campus is right over the flight path into Boston. So I flew in Tuesday midday, and I was able to take that from my window. So got lucky, I guess. Here, to give you an idea, again, it's hard. It's, res halls in general have a lot of walls associated with them, so it's hard to give you a whole perspective on where we're at. So this is a shot from our third floor of the east building. I believe it's in the 12-story tower. You see drywall activities or drywall work going on in corridors. You see insulation, obviously goes in advance of drywall, as well as all of the utilities. All the infrastructure has to come in and branch out in the units. All that activity is coming in through the corridors, which has a drop ceiling, so it's accessible. So you see your chilled hot water, you see your fire protection, this is temp lighting, you see all the electrical, all low voltage, all those kind of utilities in the ceiling there, working your way down. And then finally, as Nick mentioned, views, right? So this is a shot from our, again, east building. This is the fifth floor, I think, fourth or fifth floor where I took this, and you can see obviously the great waterfront you get. You can turn to your left, though the picture doesn't show it. You turn to your left, see Boston. Turn to your right, the JFK library, literally right there. So pretty spectacular views, no doubt. Rendering again from that same corner, northwest corner, looking southeast. That's kind of the continuation. That's what, at the end of the day, that's what we're going to get from that end of Beacons Walk. So, all right. I think Melinda's going to take over now and talk a little bit about leasing and others, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you. So now that you've heard a little bit about what's inside the building, I hope we're all excited to learn about how to apply to live in the building. We are currently accepting applications from incoming freshmen who are looking to start next fall, 2018, and as of this week, we are starting to accept applications from current freshmen. That is correct. Current freshmen right now at UMass Boston can apply to live in the building for next fall. Nick will give details on that a little later on how that process will work, but they can apply now. The housing application can be found at umb.edu /on-campus housing. And that you can learn a little more about the halls. You can see the floor plans, a few pictures, and actually apply to live in the building. With the housing reservation fee that is mentioned there, that comes later when the actual contract is given, but that is part of the process once someone does want to enter into the building. How much will it cost? That's the big infamous question. How much is this going to cost me? Well, first I want to tell you what's included before I tell you how much it's cost. So here you can see a rendering of a two-person unit. So you can see the beds are lofted a little bit there. And you can even see from that window the beautiful view out to the water. No cost for that view. Also, in each room, there is Ethernet access, both sides of the room. There's also Wi-Fi throughout the building, including in the lounges. There's a community kitchen in the west building. The west building is the actual shorter of the two buildings. So there's a kitchen there if students want to make their own food. Gail did reference there is a dining hall, a pretty fabulous dining hall that's being built on the ground floor of the east building, which is the taller of the two buildings, which is open to the entire campus. We also have lounges throughout the buildings, as well as some rooms on the first floor for larger study groups that can take place there. As it says here, all amenities are included. So students would not receive additional fees for electricity or cable or anything like that. Cable is included, and there is streaming TV, including on-demand options, thousands of channels that students can choose from, which is a pretty exciting option, and it's fairly new for residence halls. Prices are based on floor plans, which I will get into in a minute, the different types of floor plans that we have. And yes, financial aid can be used. So if someone is approved for financial aid and they have an excess of aid after their tuition and fees are covered, that can be used for their housing. Housing costs and room options. So up here that shows the 4 options that we have. We have single bedrooms, double bedrooms, triples, and quads. The single and double bedrooms, there is an option. You can have a bathroom within your bedroom, which means you would only need to share it with, in the single, yourself, or in the double with only one other person, which we think is amazing because there are some residence halls where you need to share it with the entire floor. And then again, the double bedroom is the same thing. You can have the bedroom private in your room, or you can have use the bathroom in the hallway. And the triples and quads all have a private bathroom within that bedroom. So it would just be those residents within that bedroom using their bathroom. And you can see the prices. Hopefully it's in a white font, but hopefully you can see the prices below. And here are some floor plans you can see that go with each one. And you can see the layout, the closet. For the double bedroom, you can see at the top there, the closets are open. So we found that some students like that. They can add maybe a fridge on the bottom, or just keep their shoes out and open. Some students will put a curtain there to add a little design. Beds can be bunked if students choose, but are not required in the double bedrooms or the triple bedroom. And then here you can see the private bath on the top right corner of the double bedroom. You can see the toilet is actually inside an enclosed room, and then right outside, which I'll show you here, right there, that is actually where the sink is. So you and your roommate, if one person wants to be showering, the other person can still brush your teeth and run off to class if they need to do that. So that's really nice as well. And here you can see the triple bedroom and the quad. Anyone have any questions about the floor plans?
Those are not the right floor plans.
No, those are still doubles.
We'll get you those.
We'll get you those if you want to see them. Or they're on our website. Right, the same ones. Okay, I will turn it over to Keith, where he will talk about the staffing in the building.
Thank you. I usually don't need any sort of microphone to amplify my voice, but if you need it, please let me know. So as Nick said, my name is Keith Walk. I'm the Associate Director of Residential Education. I'm in charge of pretty much all staffing that's not COCM in the halls. So that's something that, as Nick alluded to, that the UMB is doing. So we are the people in charge of the programming and the general support inside the halls. So before I get into staffing, I hate hierarchies. I hate telling you who's on top and then how does that dwindle down to who's on bottom. So I want to think about this a little bit differently about how we support students. And ultimately, I want you to see students at the very center and at the very core of what we do as a university, not just a residential operation, but as a university as a whole. I'm just marking this in terms of departmental means. And then above that are people who support and care for those individuals at various levels. So think of it sort of as an umbrella. These are the people that shield the rain from ever getting to them. So it constantly goes in. So at the very center and at the heart of everything we do here at the university, the students come first. Outside of that, we have the resident assistants. We are hiring 31 resident assistants. Applications close this Sunday. And as Gail mentioned, we are witnessing both a breadth of quality and quantity of student leaders. So it's very exciting. We have over 200 students that have applied for that position, and the application's not even closed yet. Very exciting. We will have the best of the best. Above that, supporting not only the resident assistants, but ultimately the students, are community directors. They are 3 professional staff members that I will talk about. Above that, you have the associate and assistant directors, such as me and Jen, and how we support those below us and the students. You'll have the deans and the directors, so people like Nick, Melinda, Shelby, Dr. Harris, all those individuals, how they support everyone. And then, of course, the vice chancellor, such as Gail, John, you've got, Stephen Neville, and all those individuals that support those below them, and again, ultimately the students. So that's how I want you to see the support for the students, that it's all trickling down to better support the students at the center and at the core of everything that we do. So again, I apologize for the font. It looked better on my computer. So resident assistants, we are hiring 31 of these assistants. Applications close this Sunday, and we're going to be hiring and offering them in the spring of 2018. They are hired for the full academic year. So this is very exciting. I was an RA in undergrad. It was a wonderful experience. So these students are really in charge of getting the students out of their room, getting them to know one another, getting them to acclimate into the university, and helping them just adjust to being college students and being successful here at UMass Boston. So that is their sole primary purpose. Beyond that, we'll have 3 community directors. These are full-time professionals with master's degree that will have experience also working in higher ed prior to coming here. So they'll have a breadth of knowledge prior to coming here. They will also live in. So they will be in the halls as well. 3 full-time professionals to support individuals. And they will also serve on an on-call capacity. So not only will they live in, but they will also help in cases of emergencies or student concerns. They will be able to drop everything they're doing and report to that situation at hand. And again, we'll be hiring them in the spring and the summer of 2018. And then finally, one thing that I want to talk about, before we get to the last, is we will have an untold number of desk attendants. I don't know how many just yet. It all depends on student schedules. But there are 2 desks before any student comes into the residence hall that is staffed by us. And so we will be hiring students that both live in the halls and do not live in the halls. And this will be an hourly wage. So these are students who will get mail. These are students that will help other students that come to them and they just have general questions. And so they'll help sort of triage students and student concerns and help assist them in those and help assist the RAs and the community directors. They'll report any suspicious activity if someone's coming in crying, saying, hey, I witnessed so-and-so, they might be kind of down, maybe someone should check up on them. That's going to be their primary purpose. So again, I can't tell you how many of those we'll be hiring, but those will be hired in the spring, and that's a 24/7 desk shift. So they will be working all day and all night. So that'll be very exciting.
The individuals.
Not the shift. The individual shifts will be times, but there will be a student there at all times. Not the same student all the time. But that's pretty much my job, and what I'm in charge of is making sure that this goes well, and it will, and that we're here to support the students, not only living in the halls, but also those that come and use any amenity within our hall there, whether they're residential or not. That is our primary job. And with that, I'll turn it over to Nick to close and talk about the housing lottery.
Thanks. So earlier this week, an email went out to all current freshmen inviting them to apply for housing. And we've gotten a few questions about, well, how many spaces are there going to be for returning students? And if there's more people that apply for that space, how are you going to determine who gets into the space? So the first consideration we're making is that the national studies about college housing have shown that living on campus improves things like GPA, retention, graduation rates for all levels of students, but most particularly for freshmen. And that affects the difference between students who live on campus and students who live off. It's there in all 4 years, but the further the student progresses in college, the less the gap is between the on-campus residents and those who live off campus. And so for that reason, our first residence hall is focused primarily on new freshmen, but like Gail alluded to earlier, we are going to have some spaces set aside for returning students. And right now we're targeting primarily current freshmen who have shown an interest in living there. And that's because the building ecology, the staffing, the programming models are geared more towards the younger students, freshmen and sophomores. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the applications of anybody that applies up to date and until January 15th. And if there's more applicants than there are spaces set aside, we're going to put all the applications into a lottery. And we're going to do lottery by class. So if you're a current freshman, also called a rising sophomore, that's going to be the first group that's going to be offered spaces. So within each class, each applicant is going to have a random number, and then when the number comes up, they'll have an opportunity to accept the space in housing. So some of the rules associated with the lottery include so say Keith and I want to live together, and I have lottery number 5 and Keith has lottery number 76. Well, Keith lucks out because I'm going to get called at number 5 before Keith does. Because I have an earlier number, I'm going to be able to pull Keith into my assignment. So that way we can maintain, if we know people want to live together, we can make sure that people who want to live together do. If there are, it is entirely possible that the entire allocation of spaces for returning students is only going to be offered to sophomores. So if there are more sophomores alone in the returning pool than there are spaces available, only sophomores would be offered spaces. Does that make sense? If there's more spaces beyond the number of sophomores, then we would offer to rising juniors and so on. A couple other ways the lottery is going to work is if a student is applying for a triple or a quad, they must have the other bed spaces filled. So Keith and I can't go in together and say, well, we really want a quad and just fill the other 2 spaces. We would actually have to find 2 other students to fill those spaces. And the reason we're doing that is because we cannot guarantee that freshmen will be assigned to non-freshmen, but we want to limit the extent to which that happens. So again, if you're a returning student and you want a triple or a quad, you've got to fill all the beds in your application. Now, let's say that Keith and I and Gail want to live together, and Gail is a rising junior. Gail wouldn't. I would be able to pull Keith in because I have the lower lottery number, but I'm not going to be able to pull Gail into my assignment unless we've offered all the sophomores first. Then, if there's still space in the returning student allocation, I could pull Gail in. Now, we are going to know that when we start the lottery process. We are going to know ahead of time. Do we have enough? Are there the appropriate amount of sophomores to fill all the spaces? Will we be ultimately offering to juniors? So we'll know that ahead of time. But in the initial part of the lottery process, I wouldn't be able to pull Gail in quite yet. We anticipate offering returning students spaces before spring break because we know that that's about the time that students make decisions about housing for the next year, or at least make their final decisions. So a student would be going into spring break knowing if they've been offered a space on campus. So I'm asked a lot, well, how many? If there's 1,077 total spaces, you take out the 31 RAs, that's about 1,044, or 1,046. So how many of those are going to be offered to returning students? The answer to that question is we don't quite know yet. So in late January, we're going to take a look at what our applications are looking like. We're going to take a look at the pool of people that are applying to come to UMass Boston, and based on the data we get, we're going to make an assessment as to how many total spaces we'll offer to non-freshmen. So we'll have an exact number of spaces we'll be offering towards the beginning of the spring semester, no later than the end of January. So that's how the lottery will work. We do have a set of rules. Lottery rules will be publishing to be clear and transparent about how we're going to do that. But are there any questions about that? Does everybody get the basic premise? Okay. We are going to do 2 more of these, and the topic is going to rotate. Next time, I think we'll talk about living learning communities, faculty and residents, and a couple other topics. So keep your eye out. We're going to do the next one most likely in early March, and then another one right before the end of the academic year. So we hope to see you again at the next 2 town halls, and thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.